بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد، يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كلامه المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, under the heading of Afatul Lisan, the tribulations or the liabilities of the tongue, there are numerous sins. Backbiting and lying being the tip of the iceberg. They are the ones that come to mind. And those sins, lying and backbiting, are such that even a non-Muslim, an atheist, will agree that it is an evil trait. It is a blemish on a person's personality to be a liar. But there is one sin that doesn't come to mind, and that is slander. Slander is to accuse someone of having an inappropriate relationship. And this happened exactly during the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Aisha radiallahu anha. And it is mentioned in Surah Nur in the Quran. It is an incident that is hard for us to even listen to. But it is in the Quran, so I will mention it, and it will help us understand this whole topic of slander. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would cast a lot to see which one of his wives would accompany him on a particular journey. And Aisha radiallahu anha's name came up on the expedition of Bani Mustalaq. Coming back, they camped. 1,500, 2,000 people are camping in the desert. They need to stop. They need to use the rest call of nature. They need to make wudu. They need to eat. They need to pray. It's hard for us to keep a family of 4 together at Disneyland. Imagine traveling in the desert with thousands of people. Aisha radiallahu anha goes to answer the call of nature. When she comes back, everyone has left. Not a single trace of anyone. What happened is that the 4 people assigned to lift the hodaj, the box that is put on top of the camel, the 4 people assigned to lift the hodaj, lifted the hodaj and put it on top of the camel, thinking that Aisha radiallahu anha is inside the hodaj, when in reality she was not inside. And she was lightweight, so they did not realize that there was no one inside the hodaj. Aisha radiallahu anha, being a person of intelligence, did the smart thing, did exactly what she was supposed to do, which is sit in that exact same spot. She realized that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sooner or later when he found out, would send someone to fetch me. So she sat where she was, and of course putting her trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, she fell asleep. And what happened is there was a Sahabi, many of us can probably relate to this, Safwan bin Mu'attal. Nothing could wake him up. It was very hard to wake him up. He would be one of the stragglers who would come behind the troops of Sahaba. So when he came, he saw Aisha radiallahu anha, and he had seen her before the verses of hijab. So he recognized her and said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." When he said this, she woke up and she covered herself. He motioned for her to sit on the camel, to mount his camel. This was his nobility, his respect, his dignity for her, that he moved away. He walked away a few yards and he faced the other way, because when a woman mounts a camel, her clothes are going to get disheveled. So giving her privacy and space, he walked away a few yards and looked the other way. She mounted the camel. He held the reins of the camel, and he was on foot. She was on top of the camel, and they walked into Medina Munawwara as such. Now, this gave an opportunity for the munafiqeen to raise a commotion. Something has happened between Safwan ibn Mu'attal and Aisha radiallahu anha, ma'adallah. How can someone even think that? It's hard for us to wrap our minds around this. How could someone even think? Even the reality is what I just explained, that she was left behind. Safwan ibn Mu'attal motioned for her to sit on the camel, and they made it back to Medina safe and sound. But everyone became embroiled in this rumor, in the sense that it became the talk of the town. Munafiqeen were talking about it, and everyone had heard it, except for Aisha radiallahu anha. A month had passed by, and she had no clue what people were talking, what people were saying behind her back. Then there is a lady named as Mistah, the mother of Mistah. Mistah and Aisha radiallahu anha, they are going outside of Medina to answer the call of nature. And Mistah, the mother of Mistah, she trips over her garment and stumbles and is about to fall, but catches herself, and she says, "Ta'isa Mistah, damn Mistah." And Aisha radiallahu anha says, "Why have you cursed your son? Mistah, we know nothing but good about him." And that is when Mistah, the mother of Mistah, realizes that poor Aisha has no clue, has no idea what is being said about her. So she explains, "Haven't you heard, Aisha? My son is one of the three believers, genuine Sahaba, who have become entangled in this gossip, in this slander." And it was not only Mistah, there were two others. So Mistah radiallahu an, he was a Badri Sahabi. He participated in the battle of Badr. And Hassan bin Thabit radiallahu an, the famous poet who would say poetry in praise of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the sister-in-law of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hamna bint Jahash. Who is Hamna bint Jahash? She is the sister of Zainab bint Jahash. And who is Zainab bint Jahash? Zainab bint Jahash is the wife of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These three Sahaba became entangled in this gossip. How? All the Sahaba heard about it. All the Sahaba. But these three, what did they do? What did they do that none of the other Sahaba did? We're not talking about the Munafiqeen. We're talking about the believers, the genuine, authentic Sahaba. What did these three do? That Quran came down and described the punishment for slander on this occasion. Anyhow, we'll come to that in a minute. But Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, from that moment on, my tears became unstoppable and uncontrollable, and she would cry day and night. She left the matter in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. She put it in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was also very much disturbed. He did his own inquiry. He asked Abu Bakr radiallahu an and Umar radiallahu an. He asked his wives, and he asked the maid, the female servant of Aisha radiallahu anha. Her name was Barira. And he said to Barira, "Do you know anything about Aisha? Anything indecent, inappropriate?" And her response was, "There is one fault in Aisha, and that is the only fault I know of, that when she is kneading the dough, she falls asleep. And when she falls asleep, the goat comes and eats some of the dough. That is the only fault of Aisha radiallahu anha that I know of." Anyhow, when it came to Yusuf alayhi salam, there was a human being who gave testimony, "In kana qamisuhu qudda min qubul, in kana qamisuhu qudda min dubur." If Yusuf alayhi salam's shirt is torn from the front, then Yusuf alayhi salam is guilty and she is innocent. And if Yusuf alayhi salam's shirt is torn from the back, means he was running away and she was pulling his shirt. If his shirt is torn from the back, then he is innocent and she is guilty. But when it came to Aisha radiallahu anha, Allah Azza wa Jal himself gave testimony, "Al-khabithatu lil-khabithin, wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat," that impure women are for impure men and impure men are for impure women. In other words, if you accuse Aisha radiallahu anha of being impure, that in reality would mean that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was impure. At-tayyibatu lit-tayyibina wat-tayyibuna lit-tayyibat. And pure women are for pure men, and pure men are for pure women. 18 verses of the Quran, not one or two, 18 verses in Surah Nur were revealed describing Aisha radiallahu anha's innocence, that she has nothing to do with this nonsense, with this gossip, with this slander that people have accused her of. Now, coming back to our three Sahaba, what did they do? What did they do? They did not drink alcohol. They did not commit zina. They did not murder anyone. They did not. They did not commit theft or burglary. What did they do? Quran said that each one of these three Sahaba would be whipped 80 lashes. وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ. Ayat number 4 of Surah 24, Surah Nur. Those who accuse chaste women of having an illicit relationship. وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَأْتُوا بِأَرْبَعَةِ شُهَدَاء. Then they are not able to bring 4 witnesses. They cannot produce 4 witnesses. فَجْلِدُوهُمْ ثَمَانِينَ جَلْدًا. Then flog them, whip them 80 lashes. Hassan bin Thabit radiyallahu an, may Allah be pleased with him, was whipped 80 lashes, and the son Mistah bin Uthatha was whipped 80 lashes, and the sister-in-law of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hamna bint Jahash, was whipped 80 lashes. What did they do again? All they did was say, have you heard? Have you heard what people are saying about Aisha? That's all. Doesn't mean they necessarily believed it themselves. We don't know whether they actually believed it or not. That's irrelevant, whether they believed it or not. What they said. And the other Sahaba, they also heard the exact same slander, the same accusation against Aisha radiallahu anha that the munafiqeen, the hypocrites of Medina had cooked up. But they zipped it. They kept quiet. They did not say a single word. They did not tell anyone. They heard it. They heard it. And that was the end of it. These three Sahaba, what did they do different is they told someone. They mentioned it with their tongue. They said, have you heard about Aisha? That's all. That's all they did. That is slander. And we can realize what a grievous and serious crime this is. To accuse someone. Quran mentions the punishment. This is one of the 4 had that are mentioned in the Quran, crimes against Allah Azza wa Jal that cannot be forgiven by the person. These will be punished in this world. And of course the munafiqeen, there was no punishment for them. They were not believers. Their punishment is in the hereafter. So before we say anything, we need to think. Sometimes we see a boy and a girl together at lunch, maybe in a restaurant, and then they become the talk of the town. And we hear people say, have you heard those two are together? Those two are sleeping together. Those two are doing this together. Those two are dating each other. And it was all because they were having lunch. Who knows who has given you that right to come to that conclusion? May Allah Azza wa Jal forgive us. No matter how many times we go for Hajj or Umrah year after year, and no matter how many times we or how punctual we are in our daily prayers and how we fast Ramadan after Ramadan without missing a single day, that will not come, those acts of ibadah will not come to our aid in the hereafter if we have not sorted out this realm, hukukul ibad, the rights of others. When you accuse someone, you have trampled upon his dignity, you have trampled upon his honor, so you have caused irreparable damage to his dignity, to his honor. This is not even considered as a form of defamation. There are laws in Western countries against defamation of character, but they are only applicable when you defame someone to the extent that he is unable to participate in the economics. In other words, he's unable to attain a livelihood. As long as it does not affect his livelihood, his ability to earn, his ability to get a job, then it's not really considered defamation, or it's not, the courts will really not intervene or do anything. And then on top of that, when it comes to a public person, you can say what you want. It's not considered defamation. It's only private citizens, individuals on whom defamation of character could be applied. But Islam doesn't look at whether that person who you are speaking ill against is famous or public or not, or whether it affects his livelihood or not. Defamation is defamation, defamation of character. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the realization of how grievous and how serious this crime is. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وما علينا إلا البلاغ. Please pray your sunnah.